Welcome to Flicker TV. I am going to explain a 2008 American science fiction action film called Jumper. Spoilers ahead, watch out, then take care. David Rice is a typical adolescent from a tiny rural community. He strikes up a conversation with Millie, a classmate with whom he is smitten. Millie is overjoyed when David presents her with a snow globe as a gift. Mark, a classmate, intervenes and snatches the gift away from David, taunting him. The snow globe is subsequently thrown into the middle of a frozen lake and David attempts to retrieve it. Millie attempts to talk him out of it, but David persists. When David reaches the snow globe, the ice gives way and he falls in. Millie rushes to assist, but David is trapped beneath. David is being dragged further down by the current. He finds himself in the center of the public library. All of a sudden, David is extremely disoriented, befuddled, and shocked, but he tries to leave the library without drawing suspicion. When David arrives home, his father, William, informs him that he is running late because his mother abandoned him when he was a child. David lives alone with his father. William inquires as to David's whereabouts, but he remains silent. William tries to force his way into David's room, which he has locked. David vanishes and reappears in the library just before William bursts in. David realizes that his newly discovered ability may hold the key to a better existence. He returns home and withdraws some money from his savings account. He makes the decision to relocate to a larger city and begin a new life. David then seeks to learn more about his abilities by practicing in a park to see if he can improve his control. He examines a tourist magazine and notices many tourist attractions sight throughout the world. Attempting to teleport to such locations, he sees the Empire State Building and recalls his mother, Mary, being there. Things start flying around in his room and he teleports to the Empire State Building. David then finds that he can only teleport to locations that he has visited before. Without any money, David decides to use his abilities to rob a bank. He walks to a bank and requests to use the restroom, and on his way there, he catches a glimpse of the bank's vault. David teleports into the vault later that evening and steals as much money as he can. He makes multiple journeys, each time filling up his bag. An inquiry into the bank robbery begins. The next day, Roland Cox appears and informs the bank manager that he is a government employee. He then demands all camera surveillance footage as well as the identities of anybody who has entered the bank in the last month. After a few years, David has moved into a luxury apartment in Manhattan. David is a hedonist who has everything he wants and does whatever he wants. His flat is decorated with photographs of various locales throughout the world, and he even has a hidden room where he hides foreign currencies. David then teleports to a bar in London where he spots a stunning woman. He teleports to her without hesitation, and he is seen teleporting by another person, Griffin. He spends the night with the girl before heading to Fiji to surf huge waves the next day. He then travels to Egypt where he eats lunch. A man teleports through a tropical jungle in an attempt to flee, but he is tethered by a cable that prevents him from leaving. He becomes entangled in electrified wires in a tree. Ronald approaches him. The teleporter inquires as to why Roland has done this to him, and Roland responds that teleporters are abominations who must be eradicated. He then stabs the man to death. Roland then receives a call regarding a robbery that occurred several years ago. When David returns to his flat in New York, he finds Roland there. Roland informs David that he is investigating a bank robbery, but that he is not a police officer. When David asks Roland to go, he instead grabs a baton and electrocutes him. David tries to teleport away but only manages to get a few meters. Roland rushes up and electrocutes David once more before flinging him off a ledge. After that, Roland fires a cable which connects his baton to David. Roland secures his baton to the floor, immobilizing David and preventing him from teleporting too far. David makes a frantic attempt to flee, teleporting to a concealed area in the wall and successfully cutting the line. David disappears with numerous bags of cash. He reappears in his old room at his father's house. When William hears David approaching, he runs over to him. William begs David to stay, telling him that he's not sure whether he's going insane because his son has vanished. David then assures William that he is not insane, but then vanishes just as swiftly. David searches for Millie the next day and discovers her working at a neighborhood tavern. He then runs into Mark, his old school bully, and the two engage in a brawl. After that, David teleports Mark into a bank vault and abandons him there. Millie and David reconnect when David returns. David informs Millie that he is now employed in the banking industry and inquires about her life in the tiny town. Millie says she still wants to tour the world, and David invites her to join him on a vacation to Rome. Millie is overjoyed to learn about this and expresses her desire to accompany David. Griffin is keeping a tight eye on them from behind. David and Millie are in Rome a few hours later visiting the Colosseum. Meanwhile, Roland poses as a CIA agent in order to locate Mark, who is at a police station. Roland learns of Millie and discovers that she had just arrived in Rome. When he asks him about what occurred to him in the bank, David and Millie are having a talk in an apartment in Rome about their lives, and how they've each fared over the last few years. After that, David and Millie get amorous and share an intimate moment, passionately kissing. Later that day, David gets Millie into the Colosseum, where the two of them explore the area while avoiding guards. David then separates from Millie in order to open a locked door, where he eventually encounters Griffin. Griffin discloses that he too is a teleporter, referring to himself and others like him as jumpers. Griffin chastises David for his opulent and carefree lifestyle, warning him that paladins are on a mission to eliminate all jumpers. A couple of paladins appear just as he explains. The paladins approach and brandish their batons, sparking a brawl. David tries to flee, but one of the electrified cords catches him. His teleportation ability has been disabled. Once more, Griffin then goes to battle with the two paladins, quickly defeating them. He takes out both pursuers and informs David that he has been killing paladins for quite some time. He then disappears inside his hidden hideaway. David notices a residue from Griffin's jump, which he refers to as a jump scar, and pursues it. David returns to Millie after Griffin warns him off. Millie demands an explanation for what is occurring, so David takes her away and leads her out of the Colosseum. The police arrive and arrest David for breaking into the Colosseum. Before David can begin to explain, David is questioned at the police station, but he insists that he is just a tourist who broke the rules and apologizes to the officers, then leave. A woman enters as David waits, and David knows her as Mary. His mother, Mary, delivers David the key to his handcuffs and tells him he only has 30 seconds before additional paladins come after. That David reunites with Millie and the two go for the airport. David informs Millie that they must part at the airport. Millie is disappointed to learn this, but she continues on her journey alone. In the meantime, Roland shows up at William's house and identifies himself as an IRS agent. When Roland inquires about David, William is unfriendly and unresponsive. Roland learns that William hasn't seen David in 8 years. He also talks about how Mary abandoned him and David when David was 5 years old. Roland refuses to go when William asks him to. When David arrives at Griffin's hideout, he notices that Griffin's walls are covered in photographs and information on paladins from all over the world. Griffin reveals that the fight between paladins and jumpers has been going on since the Dark Ages. When David asks why paladins are killing jumpers, the paladins, according to Griffin, are religious extremists who think that only God has the capacity to teleport. He goes on to say to David that paladins will kill everyone to get to David. David teleports to William and finds him asleep on the floor, realizing his father and Millie may be in danger. He teleports them to a hospital where medical staff hurry to assist William. David returns to Griffin's hideout, hoping to learn more about Roland before killing him. Griffin claims it's pointless because he's been pursuing Roland for more than 10 years, and each meeting has left him scarred. Griffin declines David's offer to assist him in catching Roland. Griffin then teleports to China, but David follows, still attempting to persuade Griffin to allow him to assist him. Griffin ultimately agrees when David informs him that he knows where Roland might appear next in relation to Millie. They decide to split off, with David going after Millie and Griffin returning to the bunker to arm himself. Millie's apartment is where David arrives. Millie is taken aback when she sees David again and informs him that she no longer wants to be affiliated with him. David is told to leave by Millie, but he hears Roland and a couple other men approaching. David has no choice except to tell Millie the truth and disclose himself as a jumper. Millie is taken aback when she sees David's abilities and scares out, fleeing. David grabs her and teleports them both to Griffin's lair, knowing they are in danger. When Roland and the other paladins arrive at Millie's apartment, it is deserted, but Roland notices a scar. They remove a contraption and place it below the jump scar, where a portal begins to form. They're trying to reopen the jump scar so they can track David down. Griffin is enraged to see Millie with them when David meets with him. Griffin tells David about the Paladin's machine and warns him that bringing Millie to the hideout will only attract the Paladin's attention. When David and Griffin examine the jump scar, they notice that it is growing larger. Roland appears. A few seconds later, Griffin and David runs, but David notices a photo of Mary on Griffin's wall of known Paladins. As he runs, David is then tagged and pinned to a wall with an electrified cord. Griffin enters with a flamethrower. Roland, using the Paladin's technology, also puts up a good fight. Griffin punches Roland out of the hideout and teleports away, only to reappearance with a speeding bus, aiming squarely at Roland. Millie discovers David pinned against a wall and attempts to release him, but Roland appears to be on the verge of murdering her. Griffin reappears with the flamethrower, blasting Roland back into the jump scar. Griffin follows him in. A fight between Roland and Griffin continues in Millie's flat. Millie successfully frees David in the hideout, but she informs him that she wishes to return home. David is forced to agree because he has no other option. Griffin reappears, successfully carrying the Paladin's jump scar opener, as he prepares to return Millie, despite the fact that the jump scare is still active. The Paladins manage to launch a cable and capture Millie. Griffin is preparing a bomb and David wants to save Millie. Griffin assures David that this is his chance to put a stop to the Paladins once and for all. He plans to teleport to the flat where the explosive is hidden. David protests and teleports the bomb away. Griffin pursues him and the two end up fighting and teleporting to other locales. While struggling for the bomb's remote detonator, they teleport to Egypt, San Francisco, and New York. Griffin finally gets the detonator after they wind up in a war-torn country. Griffin, on the other hand, is blind to the fact that a pylon is collapsing on top of them. Griffin is teleported into the pylon, where the huge amount of electricity captures him and pins him down. Griffin tries to persuade David to return to the apartment by telling him that he won't be able to defeat 5 Paladins. But David is determined to save Millie. When David comes to the apartment to see Millie, he is stung by 5 electrified cables that the Paladins had anchored to the apartment. David struggles as he tries to teleport away. The entire apartment begins to quake severely as a result of this, because of the wiring connecting David to the apartment. Whenever David tries to teleport, the apartment follows him. The apartment walls shake and break as he moans and yells. Finally, he teleports the entire apartment back to the lake, where he discovered his skills. With one final push, David teleports the apartment back to the library, after most of the Paladins are incapacitated. When David regains consciousness, he notices that Roland has not died. After that, David abducts Roland and abandons him somewhere in the Grand Canyon. After some time has passed, David locates his mother. When Mary's daughter opens the door, David and Mary finally have a conversation. Mary explains that she is a Paladin as well. Mary took the painful decision to leave David after he teleported for the first time at the age of 5 to protect him from the other Paladins. David wonders what will happen now that they've rejoined. Mary then responds that she would get ahead of him. After that, David returns to Millie, who is waiting for him outside. They teleport away while holding hands and smiling at one another.
If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe for more videos like this. Thank you for watching.